Hello and welcome to a very simple setup guide for the AYN Thor. So you've just got your Thor, you've turned it on, you've set it up. Now what do you do? So first things we're going to want to do is go to Google Chrome. We're going to search for Obtainium. Now what Obtainium is it's a package manager for Android apps. So don't worry too much about it if that means nothing to you. Basically, it's a way to keep all the apps and emulators we used updated without us having to do it manually. It's also a nice, easy way to download those apps in the first place. So we're going to scroll down, and then on the right-hand side, under Releases, we're just going to click whatever's here, the latest version, and then just some notes on what's new, and then we'll scroll down, and then there's tons of different versions. It can be a bit overwhelming. The only one we're worried about is this apprelease.apk, so we're going to tap that. So I've already downloaded it. The first time you download something on a brand new device, it will ask you to enable the permissions and it'll take you to the page. Just tick the toggle. So I'm not going to download it again. And then from your Files app, you'll see the app there. You can tap it. It'll ask you to install it or update it in my case. I've already installed it, so don't fret too much. So there it is there. So before we open that up, we're also going to search for RJNY Obtainium. And what this is whilst Obtainium is a package manager, we need to tell it what apps we want to keep an eye on. So we're going to open this link up. So full disclosure, this is an app that I have contributed to. So if there's any other apps that come out for the AYN Thor that I think are suitable, I'll make sure that they get added to this pack as well. So scroll all the way down, so it gives you a list here of what's included, so don't worry too much about this, just some instructions, but I'll talk through it anyway. So again, on the releases on the right hand side, and then we're going to look for, so there's two here. So if you're using a device such as the Odin or I believe the Retroid Pocket, any non-dual screen device, you're going to want the second one. On a dual screen device, we're going to want the top one. So let's open that. It'll ask us to download. Cool. So we don't want to open that yet because it's just some code. It's not going to do anything. So now we're going to go over to Obtainium. So this is Obtainium. So as you can see, there's one app in there itself. Not what we're after. So we're going to come over to this import export, and then we're going to pick Obtainium import. So this will take you to your downloads file. As you can see, there's that pack we downloaded just a second ago. So we'll tap that, and there we go, imported 38 apps and settings. So let's have a look at what they are. So we've got loads of emulators here. We've got some front ends, some utilities. There's a lot. So what I'll do is I'll quickly go through and download some of them, not all of them, but I'll give you a rough overview of what's here. So a PS3E is a PS3 emulator. I don't bother with this. PS3 emulation is in such early days that it's not worth investing any reasonable time into yet. So maybe in a future video I'll have a look at it and see where it's up to, but for now it's not worth the time. ARMSX2 is a PS2 emulator. I'm going to download it. It's not the main one I use. It is still quite new. But to download an app through Obtainium, we're just going to click on it and then click this install button. The first time you do it, it should give you a little error. There we go. So you're going to get directed to your permissions. So allow from this source. This just means that we can install apps from Obtainium. So yeah, then we'll get this pop-up. Yes, we want to install. And if you look down here on this second screen, you can see it's popped up there. So we're going to carry on. So Azahar is a 3DS emulator. This is 3DS only. So the DS emulator doesn't do 3DS games and vice versa. Yep, install that. Cemu is a Wii U emulator, if you were one of the 12 people that bought a Wii U. So this is a dual screen version of it specifically. So what this does is it just takes advantage of both screens. So if you remember a Wii U, then you'd play on the telly, and then you'd have your gamepad with another screen on. So this just uses that bottom screen as the gamepad. Citra MMJ is another 3DS emulator. I'm not going to get that one just yet, but I will be covering it in a 3DS emulation video. Citron is a Switch emulator. Again, I'll be covering that in a Switch emulation video. I won't be getting it just yet. Switch emulation requires a bit more setup than most devices, so it does require a bit more of a focused video. Dolphin emulator. Dolphin's great. GameCube and Wii games. It's been going for absolutely years. Probably one of the most popular emulators on PC. I've certainly used it many times. I'm so glad it's on Android. DuckStation is a PS1 emulator. It's great. Nothing more to say about that. Eden. This is the Switch emulator that I use. It's been quite good so far. It does get updated quite often. I'm just going to get some of the apps will have multiple versions. I'm just sticking to the standard one. Like I said, it's given me no issues so far. Flycast is a Dreamcast emulator. I don't play a lot of Dreamcast games, but I'll be checking it out anyway. So let's install that. Melon DS. So as I said before, DS and 3DS emulators are separate. This is just the dual screen fork of Melon DS. You can get Melon DS on non-dual screen handhelds, but it kind of crushes both screens up into one. So one of the main selling points of the Thor is that dual screen experience. So this version takes full advantage of that. So it's like you're playing on original hardware. So I don't bother with a nightly version. You can if you want, but it might be prone to more bugs. So we're just going to stick with the default version. Get that installed, yes please. Nether SX2 Classic, this is a PS2 emulator. This is a fork of an older emulator called Ether SX2, which I believe is no longer in development. This works really well. I've had some issues with it, but not loads. But as I said before, whilst ARM SX2 is still in its early days, then this is a nice reliable second. Pico 8 is its own system. I don't know loads about it. It is something I'm going to download it because I will be exploring it, but it is entirely up to you. I believe they're like unique games that are kind of influenced by retro games. They're all kind of blocky colours, and from my limited experience with it, it looks pretty cool, but I don't know enough about it at the moment to do something with it. PPSSPP, as well as being my least favourite emulator name, is a PSP emulator. So of course you want that. RetroArch. RetroArch will be the main building block for our emulators. This covers everything from the Atari. It does go up to the PlayStation era. Basically, RetroArch works off different cores, basically different brains, if you will, for different systems. For the most part, it's great. For some of the higher end systems, like your Dreamcast, PlayStations, things like that, it's better to use the dedicated apps. So I'll cover all that in its own video. So just install that. RPCSX is another PS3 emulator. Again, not something I'll be looking at soon. You feel free to have a go. I didn't get very far with it originally, but your mileage may vary. ScumVM is a PC emulator. It emulates, it's its own engine that emulates a lot of classic point-and-click adventure games. So your Monkey Islands, I think King's Quest, Maniac Mansion, which is what it's named after. It's I haven't actually used it on the Android, so that'll be interesting to investigate. Vita 3K is a Vita emulator, so you can play one of the 5 Vita games that were released. The setup for that, again, a little bit more complicated than some of them, so that will have its own video. So now, front ends. So whilst you were going down the YouTube rabbit hole deciding whether or not you wanted to buy an AYN Thor, you probably saw all sorts of different layouts and cool icons and just really great looking designs. This is handled by the front ends. So Obtainium comes with 3. There is Cocoon FE, which is a dual screen emulator, so it takes up both screens. I really like it. It is in beta, and there is going to be a big update shortly. Currently it's on beta 1.7. I believe 2.0, they've done a lot of rewriting of the code on the back end, so it might work completely differently. My personal favourite front end is Emulation Station Desktop Edition. That is a paid app for the Android version, because basically what you have to do, you sign up to their Patreon, they add you to a mailing list, and they'll send you a link to the app download. Not something I'll be providing because it's well worth the money. You only have to pay once. In fact, they encourage you, sign up, immediately cancel. You'll get added to that mailing list. I'll do a separate video covering front ends in more detail. But Cocoon is my personal favourite of the ones available. I'll also get Daijisho because that is probably the most user-friendly one of the bunch, and it's completely free. It's just a nice quick one to get set up. Also takes a bit longer to download, apparently. Any minute now. There we go. I have noticed that Daijisho does install 2 icons sometimes. Not too sure what that's about. Pegasus, I've had a quick look into. I wasn't really a fan. I'll cover it in a separate video, but I won't be downloading it right now. PC emulation. So this is one of the good selling points of the Thor, is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 that's in the AYN Thor is powerful enough to do some PC emulation. I've only had decent enough experience with GameHub Lite playing indie. I've been playing tons of Megabonk, and that runs a treat on this device. I've also tried Game Native. Didn't have a lot of luck with that one personally. There is a tool which delves into PC emulation as well, which I'll cover shortly. So for me, I'm just going to get GameHub Lite. You can sign up to your Steam account through it. I'm trying to get the Lite version at the bottom here. So also make sure you get the Lite version, because the original GameHub version is developed by, I think it's the same people who do the GameSir controllers, and there was a lot of controversy around it because it came with a lot of telemetry, a lot of tracking. It's asking you for permissions to your device and your location and things that you shouldn't really be giving to a company on the other side of the world, especially one with a reputation. So the Lite version is a fork of that with all that stripped out. It works a treat. There's also Emulator, which I've dabbled in. It's quite complex. It's a little bit ugly, so I won't be touching that at the moment. There's also PC streaming. If you have games installed on your machine and you want to remote in and stream them over the internet. I believe Moonlight is no longer in development. I just use Artemis. Artemis does work really well, so I'll be installing that as well. So this section is track only. So what this will do, it won't download the actual apps, but it will let you know when there's updates in which you can go back to the GitHubs and get the relevant apps. So the Obtainium emulation pack is what we installed at the start. That's something that I've contributed to, and it does get updated very frequently. In fact, just this morning I've requested another app, which will be hopefully approved shortly, which is it's a device. It's an app for the bottom screen of the device called Yarn Gripper, which works with another app that I'll mention shortly. Turnip drivers, these are graphics drivers that are custom made. They help with Switch emulation and I believe PC emulation as well. A lot of the apps do install them automatically, or you can download them from within the app themselves. Again, this doesn't download them, it just lets you know there's new versions available. So utilities, so this can be the fun bit. So Bifrost. What Bifrost is as you can see, I've got these funky blue LEDs. Bifrost is a utility which you can have control the LEDs. So for example, there's a option it will record the screen and take the colours on either side of the screen, and it will mirror the colours. It's kind of cool. Some of the programs are quite flashy and they react to audio. They can be a little bit obnoxious. I'll go through that once we've finished all the apps. EmuReady Lite. This is if you're planning on installing the PC emulators like GameHub. and Game Native. This is basically an app which points to a website where people post their findings on their experiences with certain games, on certain apps, what settings they used. So always handy to have that. The ESD Android apps and ESD companion apps I'll cover in the ESDE video. I haven't actually used the companion app yet. The Android apps just allows you to install it within the same emulation station, so you've got a bit of an all-in-one. Mjolnir. Now, Mjolnir is great. What this is it allows you to have 2 separate launchers on each individual screen. So the app that I've just submitted for review, Yarn Gripper, it's basically an alternative to this app shelf at the bottom, but it's more customizable. It's got nice big chunky logos. It works great. It's designed to work alongside Mjolnir. So that hopefully by the time this video is published, that should be live. If not, it will be following shortly. Odin tools. This is more for the Odin. It's just some small settings tweaks, not something I tend to bother with, so I won't be getting that one. Pixel Guide, I love. So one of the main advantages for me, or the things that piqued my interest when looking at the AYN Thor, was obviously the second screen. So with Pixel Guide, you can get a guide from GameFAQs. Say if you're playing a big RPG and you need a walkthrough, you can have Pixel Guide, store it, so you can have the walkthrough down here and then the game up here, which I think is well cool. Sync thing I will also be downloading. So this is if you use multiple devices and you want to keep your save data in sync, then this is what you'd use. It is quite a complicated setup. This will all be covered in a separate video. If you're only going to be planning on using the AYN Thor as your main device, don't worry about it. But I'm going to install it anyway, when I press the install button properly. And of which I'm just going to get the Android release. There we go. Oh. So there's an issue with that one, so I'm going to try the other one. Probably explains why there's 2. There we go. So we're going to install the sync thing fork. Excellent. So that's all our apps installed. So I will just quickly cover the next step. So we're going to get some folders ready, and then we're going to get some games ready. So I can't tell you where to get games from due to piracy, but what I will say is that if you're a Reddit user, then the ROMs subreddit is your Bible. There's a mega thread on there with all sorts of information. Have a look through. I imagine some of you are more drawn to other systems than others. I'm a big PlayStation guy, so everything's covered. So for now, let's get some folders ready. Where's it gone? Yeah, sometimes I do have these little kind of glitches, but usually just a couple of quick swipes will fix them. So first, there we go. So the turnip drivers have an app available. So this is what Obtainium does. So that's some perfect timing. I won't worry about those now. So we're going to go into Files, and then we're going to click this little burger menu, and then we're going to find our device. So I am on the AYN Thor. So this is the Rainbow Max model. So this comes with the 1 terabyte internal storage. I don't have a need for an SD card at this point, but if you're an SD card user, then your SD card will be listed as one of the devices here. This all still applies. The only thing that will be different is when you're setting up your emulators and it says, where are your games stored? You'll obviously be pointing to a different path than myself. So I'm going to add a couple of folders. So I'm going to tap these 3 dots up here. I'm going to add a new folder. The first one I'm going to add is BIOS. So like I said, I'm a PlayStation guy. If you play usually disc-based games from that era, they require a BIOS. It's basically a kind of clone of the operating system. Some emulators work fine without it. Some of them you must have it or you'll get a ton of errors. And then I'm going to create a new folder called ROMs. When I can... it's really hard to type and do this at the same time. Within that ROMs folder, I'm going to create just a couple of demo folders. So do bear in mind that some of the front ends require ROMs to be in a specifically named folder. Some of them are more custom. So, for example, if I do GB, that's Game Boy. If I do GBA, that's Game Boy Advance. If I do GBC, that's Game Boy Color. And then so on and so forth. So I'll set these up, I'll pop some games in the folder, and then I'll come back, and then what I'll do is I'll show you just a quick demonstration of a game booting in an app. Okay, so I've added some games to my device. So what I've done is, in my ROMs folder, I've added a couple of Game Boy Advance games, a couple of NES games, and a couple of SNES games, just as a demonstration. So now we're going to try and get those games to boot. So let's go into RetroArch. So the first thing I always do for RetroArch, I don't like this UI, I think it's a bit ugly. So if you swipe from the left, you'll get back to the settings menu. So you're looking for drivers, and then in the menu driver, I always change it to XMB. And then we'll go back, scroll down, and so I'll go to home. And then on the configuration file, so any changes you do during RetroArch, you need to make sure that you save that current configuration, or the next time you come to it, you'll have just lost all that work. So now I'm going to close the app, I'm going to completely get rid of it, reopen it, and now you can see the new menu layout. For those of you familiar with the XMB from the PSP, PS3 days, then this is something that's much more palatable. So I'll just move this a little bit closer so you can see. So the first thing I always do is go into input. So you go across, then down to input, and then I change the menu controls, and I just disable this swap, OK, and cancel buttons. Because I'm using a device with a switch layout, it always confuses me with the A and B being reversed. So we'll untick that. Oh, I've confused myself. There we go. So I'll go back. So first thing we're going to want to do is we'll go back to this little RetroArch menu at the side. We'll go to our configuration file. Sorry, not the configuration file. We'll go to the online updater. So we have the core downloader. So as I mentioned earlier, each core is basically almost a different emulator for the systems, all built into RetroArch. So we need a Game Boy Advance one, we need a NES one, and we need an SNES one. So I will cover RetroArch more in depth in a later video, but just as a basic setup, they're all organised by system. So let's scroll all the way down looking for Nintendo. So for the Game Boy Advance one, I really like MGBA. So that's the one I'd recommend. There are others. I think MGBA is the best. So we'll just click that. You'll get this little hash at the side just to show you that it's downloaded and installed. And then for the NES, I like FCEUMM, FCEUM, I don't know how to pronounce that. And then for SNES, SNES 9X, I really like. So now I've got those installed, I'm going to back out. I'm going to quickly run through, and all these ones that say update, I'm just going to run through those. So update core files, update assets, update controller profiles, update cheats, update databases, update overlays, and then update the GLSL shaders. So whilst they're ticking away at the bottom, we're going to go over to the settings, we'll go back to input, and then we're going to look at our binds. So this is basically mapping the controller to work with the emulators. So we're going to the port 1 controls. So for the analog to digital type, what this basically means is if you are someone who prefers to use an analog stick, it will translate that to D-pad. So if you press up on the analog stick, it will register as up on the D-pad. So we're going to enable that on the left analog stick. And then, yep, it's the AYN Odin. And then down here, you can see all our keys. So we're just going to go through and map them. This is something we'll be doing across all the emulators. It's a bit repetitive, but you only have to do it once. So we'll just click into this. You have to hold the key for about 2 seconds. Some of them will already be there, but it's always good just to double check and make sure. So I'll click A, then hold A for a second, then Y, X, and select, start. Just want to pick this up a second, and then I'll move this up a bit actually. There we go. So I use select and start as these two buttons here, and then for the L1 button, obviously your left shoulder, right shoulder, L2, R2, L3, and click the thumbstick in, and the same for the opposite side. And now we'll map the analog stick. So you have to do it in all directions, so you do up, down, left, right, and then the same for the right stick. And there we are. So you don't need to worry about the light gun controls. So we'll back out of those. And then for our hotkeys, we'll make sure they're enabled. So for the hotkey enable, this is basically the key that you'll press, and then that is your starting key for the hotkey. So I always use select. So if I want to, say, quit the game, I can set quit as the start button, which means I have to hold select and then press start to enable the quit function. So I'll just do that now. And then I'll also, the menu toggle, I like doing as X. So I'll just hold X for that. So if I press X normally, nothing will happen, but if I hold select and press X, it will open the menu. So now that's done. One thing whilst I'm here, if you've ever used retro achievements or heard of retro achievements, then I thoroughly recommend setting it up. So to do that, you just go to the achievements in the settings, enable it, and then set your username and password. So I'll just do that now. Cool, so that's all set up. So I've done my username and password. You can also change how the achievements display. I tend to just leave it on the defaults. Although it's nice to have an unlock sound, so we'll enable that. Okay, so as I said before, so anything you do, make sure you get in the habit, configuration file, save your current config. So now we've set up a basic version of RetroArch. We're going to flip over to Daijisho and set that up. Okay, so I've got some games. I've set up RetroArch. Now I need to set up a front end so I can display them with all sorts of nice funky artwork. So in this video, I will do a very basic setup of Daijisho. I will also do another video where I go through different front ends, what they like, their features, pros and cons, that sort of thing. But for now, the most simple one you can use is Daijisho. So I'll tap that, let it do its thing. So the first thing we're going to want to do is download the platforms so it knows to download all the settings and artwork for the relevant things that we want to play. So download platforms. I'm not going to download all 123 of them. I just want the Game Boy Advance, the Nintendo Entertainment System, and the Super Nintendo. They are all alphabetical, so just select the ones you need. Let them import, shouldn't take too long. So now, we need to tell Daijisho where our games are stored. So we're going to go to paths. We're going to add a path. Going to go to our ROMs folder on the Thor itself, or your SD card, wherever you might have stored them. Click ROMs, and then Game Boy Advance. We'll use that. You'll get this little pop-up. We'll allow it. And then we'll sync it. So make sure you sync, because what syncing will do is it will download the art. It's called scraping. As you can see there, it's scraping Breath of Fire. So as well as that, we also need to set the player. We need to tell Daijisho what emulator it's going to use to run that game. So we're going to come to this little pencil icon in the bottom right, and then we'll scroll down, and then so you can see here the player settings, it's defaulted to VBA Next. I didn't download VBA Next, so if I was to try and boot this game, it would just crash, nothing would happen. If you want to go through or RetroArch and download every core, you are more than welcome to. It's a little bit overkill, but it's not going to harm your system. So I downloaded MGBA, which is the one I recommend. So we're going to make sure we go to RetroArch 64, which is the one we've got installed, and then MGBA number 18, and we're going to save that. Okay, and now we're going to use the triggers and the bumpers. So the bumpers will take you from console to console, or you can just come down here and move left and right. The shoulder buttons will take you to the tabs across the top. So if you wanted to get access to your apps or have a look at the settings, which I'll cover in a separate video, then that's how you do that. So let's go to the NES. We're going to add the path, add more, go back to our ROMs folder, NES, use this folder. Yes, you can. And then, obviously, if you want to add multiple paths, this is where you do it. But I only have the one, so we're just going to synchronize that. Whilst that's doing, third and finally, paths on the Super Nintendo, add more, go back, SNES, use this folder, allow, sync. So we need to set the players for both of those, so we'll come to this pencil, edit it, and then we'll... You can type them manually, I wouldn't recommend it. So I use the FCEUMM. Make sure, again, it's RetroArch 64, because that's what we've got installed. If you don't, it will ask you to download the Google Play version, which you're welcome to do, but personally, I just like using the Obtainium version. So we'll save that. And then finally, the SNES, we'll set that. I was already set to SNES 9X, which is what I've downloaded. That's fine. Obviously, there's not just RetroArch in here. So you can see at the bottom there, there's the SNES 9X Plus, which is a separate app, which I believe you can get on the Google Play Store. A lot of the consoles, like your GameCube, PlayStation 2, you wouldn't use RetroArch, you'd use their relevant emulators. Again, I'll cover all this in further videos. So that's already set, so I can just cancel out of that, I don't need to do anything. So now, moment of truth. So we're going to go to our Game Boy, and we are going to boot up a game. So you've got to get this warning, basically telling you that it's going to close all the apps in the background. That's fine. So now, as you can see, it's booted, but unfortunately, I've got this really ugly touch display. You can also see there, my retro achievements popped up because I signed into that. So what I'm going to do, so like I set the hotkey before, and this is why you want to set the hotkey. So I'm going to hold select and press the X button. That's going to open up this menu in-game. I'm going to scroll down to on-screen overlay, and I'm going to turn that off because we don't want it, we don't need it. I'm going to back out of that, and before I quit out of this menu, I'm going to go to the configuration file, and I'm going to save it. I know it's repetitive, but trust me, there is nothing worse than spending ages tinkering with the settings, and then you realise you didn't save it. So now I'm going to back out of that. So I don't want to quit, so I can just use the same hotkey combination. So select an X, that'll take us back to the game. So there is also, I don't know if you noticed, this little white bar on the side. This is part of a built-in management system. It's basically the same things that you have down here if you press the AYN button, where you can control the brightness, the volume. You can also have it so if you only want the top screen to display, then you can turn that off. And if you ever need that back, just press the button again. You can also use it to get to the apps that are open using the task manager. Or you can, if you press the settings, you can see I'm currently in 120 FPS mode, the temperatures, the fans. You can set the fans from here. I just leave it on smart mode. You can set your performance if you're doing PC emulation. Again, I'll cover all these more in depth in another video, but just a heads up. So if you want to get rid of this little white bar, if you swipe down from the top, and again, and then this is basically your quick settings, so you can also set things here. So you're looking for an option called floating icon. So you can turn the transparency right down. This will allow you to still use that menu if you ever need to, but it hides the icon. or if you tap it, just go back to it again, it will completely remove it, which gets rid of the icon, but it also gets rid of the functionality, being able to swipe in. So I prefer just to tap the little arrow, drag the transparency right down, and then there you go. So that's it. So a bit of a long video, I gather, but a lot of these steps you only have to do once. So I'm just going to mute that. What I'm going to do in the coming videos is each video I'm going to focus on a different system or a different front end, and then I'm going to talk through how to set it up so you can get the full use of your AYN Thor. So welcome to your new hobby, and I'll see you next time.